Welcome to NFL World, where NFL starts and ends. I'm your host, Jacob. And to begin this week's show, we'll first begin with the Bills and the Dolphins. The Bills knocked the Dolphins down a couple pegs. This Dolphins team, best offense, scoring the most points, gaining the most yards, doing all the things, not getting sacked. Tua got sacked once before this game, got sacked like 3 times. Offense was not good. They turned the ball over. The Bills played good defense. DeMar Hamlin actually was active for this game. He had a nice, warm reception from the Buffalo crowd. But, yeah, the Bills just dominated this game. They performed very well. I'm impressed if I'm the Bills. The Dolphins, this is a reset. You now don't have to burden yourself with being undefeated. But understand something. You can't play that way on offense. You were not good on offense. Defense, they had a lot of missed tackles. The play that Stephon Diggs had, he caught a pass right near the sideline. 2 guys had a chance to tackle him, and he spins out of both guys. That can't happen. You can't have those many missed tackles on a play. That cannot happen. So the Bills did what they were set to do. Josh Allen remains 7-0 now at home when he faces the Dolphins. And let's see what happens when these two teams meet again in Miami. Moving on to we gotta bring this up. Okay, I gotta make sure I have this all brought up. So we're gonna talk first. Let's first begin with the Eagles. Eagles played Washington. Washington at one point was up 17-7 in this game. And then it went to they were actually winning this game. The Eagles were 24-17. Commanders tie it. And they actually after I was done watching the Bills and Dolphins game, I turned the channel to watch the Eagles Commanders game finish up. And it was 31 the Eagles were driving, they throw a touchdown to AJ Brown. And Forbes, the rookie, was on AJ Brown and was just beside himself when he got to the sideline. He was very frustrated. And they go to the sideline, and the Commanders go all the way down the field in the minute 40. They go all the way down the field. They score on the final play of the game. They kick the extra point. They bring it to overtime. They get the ball first. And then Fox decided, no, okay, we're going to show you the America's Game of the Week. Then they did a simulcast when the Eagles were just about to score. And the Eagles kick a field goal and win 34-31. This is the interesting thing about this Eagles team, though. They're not blowing anyone out. They're winning games. They're very mentally tough. Their offense is scoring. But I have a question on this Eagles secondary. When you face a either decently to pretty good offense that can score points, can you win those games consistently? We saw it with the Vikings last year. They would face teams and they would get victories, but they would win by 3 or 7 points. That happened all the time. Can the Eagles be that team this year? That's a question. That is a personal question that we all have to answer at some point. So that's my question of the Eagles. How is the secondary going to look? Because they're ferocious on their defensive line, and their offensive line is ferocious in their own way as well. But at what point are they going to be able to rely on the secondary to make plays when they face the better teams in the NFL. Next up in that department would be the Chiefs. The same goes for the Chiefs. You beat the Jets 23-20 in a game where Mahomes did not look great. That Chiefs offense didn't look great. At one point, you're up 17-0. You take a safety because the right tackle grabs the face mask of the Jets player, which we will talk more about this game in a little bit. So that causes a safety. Then the Jets go and kick a field goal. Then they force you to punt. Then they go and score a touchdown. So now it's 17-12. They only gave up a field goal. Then they go down the field in the second half and score a touchdown and a 2-point conversion and tie the game. Again, like I said, we'll talk about this game more in a little bit. But this is the Jets team that couldn't score more than 10 points and was giving up as much as 30 on defense. And we will talk more about this game, but I'm impressed with how Zach Wilson looked. Next up, and I understand it's early in the NFL season, but there's three coaches I think are on the hot seat. You can say whatever you want about Sean Payton, but there's three coaches, I think, and they're pretty distinctive. One is Matt Eberflus, the coach of the Chicago Bears, and he's probably my number one. Number two would probably be, I've going back and forth with this in my mind last night, is probably Brandon Staley, and 2A would be probably Josh McDaniels. Now let me start with Josh McDaniels. This Raiders team is a nightmare. They don't score a lot of points. They don't run the ball. They can't run the ball. Josh Jacobs led the league in rushing last year. They can't run the ball. They can't do it. Their defense is hit or miss. They don't play well. They struggle when they get behind. Like it's a disaster to watch the Raiders play. And it's equally as bad to watch the Chargers play. They score a lot of points on offense. They can score 30 points easily, just like that. But their defense is so bad. They're really bad. The only reason they beat the Raiders, this is the truth. They beat the Raiders because they had Khalil Mack going crazy. He had 6 sacks yesterday. 6. They beat the Raiders because he had 6 sacks. They are not good. They don't have any good protection. They're not great in defending against the pass. They struggle immensely. What happened was, in this game, it's the second straight week that they've done this. They are winning the game. It's a 4th down. They're in their own territory. They go for it, and they don't get it. They don't get it. And then they allow the opposing team to basically have a chance to win the game. Now, they've won the game because the Chargers have won the 2 games because they had a tip pass against the Vikings that led to an interception. And this one, you had a 5th-round rookie quarterback throw the ball directly towards Asante Samuel Jr. That's how you won. That is how you won the game. You didn't win the game because of Brandon Staley was a good coach. He went for it in his own territory. Went up the second straight week. I don't know if he's brain dead or he's so focused on the analytics, you don't realize who's on the other side of that field. That's the problem. That is the problem. Analytics will say, well, if you score on special teams 93% of the time, you win the game. Okay, that doesn't mean you win the game every time if you score on special teams. You can't expect that to happen. If you go for it on 4th down and 1, and they say, well, yeah, 60% of the time you score, 60% of the time you get the first down, you win the game. And if you run this play, it's up to 70%. But that does not calculate if Aaron Donald's on the field, if Max Crosby's on the field, if Micah Parsons is on the field, if TJ Watt is on the field, if Nick Bosa or Joey Bosa are on the field. That does not calculate anything. This is what's happened to the NFL. We have people who are so focused on the analytics, which is fine, be focused on the analytics. But understand, you can't run your life by that. Because if you've got to face Aaron Donald or Micah Parsons like the Chargers have to do in a couple weeks, it's going to be rough. You can't do that. And if you're the Chargers, Justin Herbert's playing out of his mind. He played in a game against the Vikings. He went 30 of I don't know if I think he went 30 of 34, 30 of 37, which is unreal. They barely won. That can't happen. That shouldn't be possible. You go 30 of 34, 30 of 37, and yet you barely win the game. You nearly lost. That can't happen. Not against good teams. Not against teams that actually know how to play. You cannot allow that to happen. End of story. And the first one is Matt Eberflus. And really, this whole regime should be fired. They should just start over and be fired. Because this is a disaster. This doesn't make any more sense every time I look at this. They play terrible on offense. Justin Fields actually looked like he could play yesterday against the Broncos. He had 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. The pick was not ideal, but they played good on offense. Their defense sucks. They can't play defense. And I understand what's going on in Chicago. It's a mess over there the last 2 weeks. I get it. You don't have a defensive coordinator, so you got your head coach calling the defensive plays. The only problem with that is he was a defensive coordinator. He was a defensive coordinator. So that's not supposed to be the struggle. Their offense, though, has been a mess in the last couple weeks. They're blaming Justin Fields. At what point do you go and say, there's so much going on, it's a disaster, you got to start over? What's going on with Chase Claypool is ridiculous. Last week we came on the show on Monday, and Justin Fields went and said, or the previous week it went and said, coaching has been bad. I don't feel like I can play the way I normally play. I'm trying to do too much. It's a lot. And that was a real moment. These quarterbacks are trained to answer questions in a very specific way. And here they are asking him repeatedly, why don't you feel that you can play the way you've been playing? And he said coaching. It was a real moment. But what Chase Claypool said was not the same thing. Because Chase Claypool went and was asked a question, do you feel that that the Bears have been using you correctly? And he said no. They haven't. Well, Chase, the problem is your effort. Your effort is bad. This was the issue you had in Pittsburgh. Mike Tomlin gave you every single opportunity, and you messed it up every chance you could. He gave you every opportunity. You're a tall guy. Have a strong point at the catch. Your effort should not be the issue. And that's what it was. That's why you went and got traded to Chicago. That is why you're in Chicago in the first week of the year. You're not even trying. and they say, "Hey, if you don't show up and there's no effort, you won't be here. We'll trade you, we'll release you, we'll suspend you, we won't let you be here." Week 4, what happened? Does not show his best effort? Oh, in week 3, he doesn't play in week 4. Now there's rumors that the Bears are going to try and trade him for a 5th and a 6th, because that's all they're gonna get. And they're probably not gonna even get that. A person who doesn't wanna play, they're not gonna get him from that. No way. Now, there's also something I just saw that says Claypool to remain away from the Bears in week 5. They deactivated him for the week 4 game, as I just said, but they said, "Stay home. We don't want you." That was it. So it's how are they gonna trade him, or what are they gonna get? I don't know if they'll be able to trade him. It's hard to trade for somebody who is playing with no effort. That's hard. I don't see it happening. So that's the mess in Chicago. But it doesn't just start with Chase Claypool. It's the head coach. And Jimmy Johnson said something interesting. I thought this was very interesting. He said this in the noon pre-show for Fox. He said, "Look, you make them, you run the quarterback more, you run the ball more, and then at the end of the season, you fire everybody, you get rid of Justin, you bring in Caleb Williams, and you bring in his coach, Lincoln Riley from USC. That's what you do." And I'm like, "Sounds good. Sounds good." Because this doesn't work. So what's gonna work? You're 0 and 4. You're 0 and 4. What's gonna work? Because at this point, you can't see anything. You don't play well. There needs to be a change, and it needs to happen fast. And next up, let me make sure I have it. Okay, yes. We'll go this before we go into the game recaps. Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots played the Dallas Cowboys yesterday. The Cowboys ended up winning the game. And in this game, this was Belichick was still trying to win the game number 300, which would put him in regular season. In regular season, would put him with George Halas and Don Shula and all those guys, the legends, the next pedestal of the game. But the Patriots lost this game, and we'll get into it in the game recaps. But in this game, I feel this was the biggest loss. They showed this. This was the biggest loss Bill Belichick has ever had. A 35-point loss. That he didn't have that loss in New England before, didn't have that loss in Cleveland. This was a bad loss. They were at one point heading into halftime losing 28-3. And the only reason the Cowboys did not score more points is because they decided to start running the football. That's why. So, heading into halftime, that was the biggest deficit that they had heading into halftime. That's a concern if I'm the Patriots and if I'm Bill Belichick. That has to be fixed. Now, heading into our game recaps, our regular season record before this week was 16-6. Our first game we have is the Lions. Now, the Lions beat the Packers 34-20. This was the first game the Lions actually scored more than 30 points. They actually haven't scored more than 20. They scored 34 points here. Jared Goff, besides the one INT, looked good. They ran the ball extremely well. David Montgomery had 32 carries for 121 yards and 3 touchdowns. Josh Reynolds played really well. Amon-Ra St. Brown caught another touchdown. And Jordan Love, it wasn't that he was bad. They turned the ball over a couple times. The offensive line is a mess. They lost David Bakhtiari looking for the year. Uh, the for Jordan Love, 246 passing yards and 1 passing touchdown. Not bad. Uh, Dobbs had a good game. 9 catches, 95 yards. I think that was a good game from the Packers, but it's hard when you don't score over 10 points in either quarter. 3 points in the first quarter, 8 points in the third quarter, 9 points in the fourth quarter. Not ideal. The Lions made it look pretty easy. Next up, we have the Bills and the Dolphins. Make sure I get it right here. Right here. If I'm the Dolphins, this was the one game I wish I had an O-line. Teron Armstead left the game. I think he did return, but it didn't matter. They couldn't stop the pass rush of the Bills. They couldn't really do anything. They If you don't know this, basically the Bills corners played bump and run the whole game. They got their hands on the Dolphins wide receivers because they are smaller guys. They were unable to shake bump and run coverage. So again, the Bills played really well. Tua looked confused throughout the game. And it goes the same thing that I just said about the Packers goes for the Dolphins. You had scored 7 points in the first quarter, 7 points in the second quarter, 6 points in the third quarter, but 0 points in the fourth quarter. When the Bills scored 14 in the first, 17 in the second, 10 in the third, and 7 in the fourth. That's the reason you lost. You can't tackle and you played like that. That's the reason you lost. And again, the numbers reflect that. Josh Allen had 320 passing yards, 4 touchdowns. Stephon Diggs had 3 of those touchdowns, 6 receptions, 120 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Tyreek Hill was held to 3 catches for 58 yards. Achan had 8 carries, 101 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That was it. They couldn't do anything. Besides those guys, there was nothing that they could really do. And now, again, reset, refocus, move on. That's what you gotta do if you're the Dolphins. Next up, Buccaneers. They beat the Saints. One of the 2 teams I'm concerned about is the Saints. The other team is Bengals. They have not looked good. The Saints, the fact that they were at one point 2-0, mind-boggling. Their offense was terrible. Let me make sure. Let me see if I can find it. All right. Similar situation that I just said. The Buccaneers beat the Saints 26-9. It's not like the Bucs did anything special. They don't turn the ball over. They don't make mistakes. And when they do score, they tend to score in bunches. They didn't score in the first quarter, the Buccaneers didn't. 14 in the second quarter and 12 in the fourth quarter. That was it. That's all they did. And they head into a bye week. They're going to get healthy, and they're all set. The Saints, meanwhile, they were 2-0. Now they're 0 now they're 2-2. 3 points in the first quarter, 0 points in the second quarter, 3 points in the third quarter, and 3 points in the fourth quarter. That was it. Definitely the injury did not help Derek Carr. He actually got pulled from the game. But look at Baker Mayfield's stats. 246 yards, 3 touchdowns. Godwin, 8 catches, 114 yards. Mike Evans got pulled from the game with a hamstring injury, did not return. But Derek Carr, 127 yards. That was it. Alvin Kamara, 11 carries, 51 yards. Michael Thomas, 4 catches, 53 yards. That was it. They had nothing on offense. And the scoreboard shows that. But definitely one of the teams I am concerned about is the Saints. The other team is the Bengals. The Bengals don't look good either. Besides the game against the Rams, they have not looked good. All right. Next up, we got the Eagles. You got the Eagles and the Commanders. This game went to overtime. All right. The Eagles pulled this game out. Hurts had 319 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. Swift had 14 carries, 56 yards, and 1 touchdown. A.J. Brown had 9 catches, 575 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Really, where I think this game was lost by the Commanders was their inability to get stops late in the game. Commanders scored 7 points in the first quarter, 10 points in the second quarter, 0 points in the third quarter, 14 points in the fourth quarter, didn't score in overtime. The Eagles, 7 points in the first quarter, 3 points in the second quarter, 11 points in the third quarter, 10 points in the fourth quarter, and then the game-winning field goal in overtime. But it's not like Sam Howell played bad. 290 passing yards, 1 touchdown. Robinson, 14 carries, 45 yards, and a touchdown. McLaurin, 8 catches, 86 yards. They didn't play bad. They scored 31 points. It's hard to say, okay, you played bad. But that's the concern if I'm the Eagles. You cannot allow teams to hang around because that's how you can lose games. They almost lost this one. Next up, the Cowboys Patriots game. All right here. Again, this is a game I'm concerned if I'm the Patriots on Mac Jones. There was 2 plays. He ran to the right and threw back to the left. And the second time he did it, I'm not 100% sure on the first time, but the second time he rolled to the right and threw back to the left, he threw a interception because he ran the same thing. The Cowboys corner jumps it, intercepts it, returns it for a pick 6. The fumble, I'm not gonna blame on Mac Jones. That was not his fault. But that happened. That interception. The second interception he threw to Devon Bland was just not it was the right read, not the best throw. And that's how it got picked off. But I'm concerned if I'm the Patriots. Offensive line did not look good. You stopped Micah Parsons, which is an unbelievable effort, but you held him pretty much the whole game. You don't have wide receivers. Mac Jones couldn't throw anyone the ball. He didn't look good. 150 yards for Mac Jones. That's unacceptable if you're the Patriots. Can't throw 150 yards. They replaced him for Bailey Zappi, who actually played decently. Is he a starter? I don't think so. But I'm concerned if I'm Patriots and Mac Jones. This can't happen. The run game for the Patriots was pretty much non-existent, which is an improvement from the Cowboys side. Stevenson was their leading rusher, 14 carries, 30 yards. Hunter Henry was their leading wide receiver. It's never really a good thing when your tight end's a leading wide receiver. 4 catches, 51 yards. To put that in perspective, Dak Prescott, who was pulled in the fourth quarter, 261 passing yards and a touchdown. He wasn't asked to do a whole lot. Tony Pollard, 11 carries, 47 yards. Wasn't asked to do a whole lot. Jake Ferguson led the team in catches 7 catches, 77 yards. The Cowboys didn't have to do a whole lot of anything. Defense was so good. The Patriots scored on the opening drive, and that was it. They had no other kind of offense. The Cowboys, 10 points in the first quarter, 18 points in the second quarter, 3 points in the third quarter, 7 points in the fourth quarter. That was it. They didn't do anything because they didn't have to. And I'm concerned about the Patriots, not on defense, but definitely on offense. Next up, the Sunday Night Football game. Chiefs vs. Jets. The Chiefs won this game. I better put in quotations, won this game. And the reason I put it in quotations is this. Alex Kemp and his crew. Yesterday, I was watching the game with some family, and the numbers don't do it justice. Mahomes, 203 yards and a touchdown. Pacheco, 20 carries, 115 yards, 1 touchdown. He had also 43 receiving yards. Kelsey, 6 catches, 60 yards. I took from this game a couple things. Let's first start with the Jets on that. Zach Wilson looked pretty good in this game. And the reason he looked good, they weren't asking him to be Aaron Rodgers in this game. They said, we're going to do the basic things, and if you can work on those basic things and we excel at it, we'll add a little more over time, which is what you should do. I understand you're babying him a little bit, but he needs that right now. And look, at 245 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. Breece Hall, 6 attempts, 56 yards. Should they have given them the ball more? Yes. But the offensive line of the Jets is bad. It's hard to run the ball when the line is bad. Allen Lazard, 3 catches, 61 yards, and a touchdown. But the thing with Zach Wilson, I saw improvement. He was throwing back shoulder balls. And if he didn't, he had a touchdown to Lazard. If he does not throw that back shoulder, that's not a touchdown, that's a pick. Because he threw it back shoulder, it was a touchdown. He threw another one to the tight end early on that drive, back shoulder. Perfect ball, perfect placement, gave his guy a chance. He came down with it. Sometimes the simplest things are the best things. Now, if he can continue to do that, you're going to win games. I'm not saying you're going to make the playoffs, but you'll have a shot. You'll have a shot. The Giants at 1-3 showed me something that I didn't see in the previous couple weeks. They showed that they had some hope and they played well. Now, the reason why I brought up Alex Kemp, he was the official for that game. He was also the official for the Cowboys Cardinals game the week before. And Cowboys fans don't like Alex Kemp. They feel Alex Kemp's crew is too ticky-tack. We gotta throw a flag on every little thing. But as soon as the game starts to get out of hand, we'll just let stuff go. Well, here the opposite was true. They didn't throw a whole lot of flags in the beginning part of the game. There was a face mask. It was blatant face mask. It led to a safety. But before that, the Chiefs scored 17 points in the first quarter. The Jets didn't score in the first quarter, but they had that safety. They kicked a field goal. They scored a touchdown in the second quarter. The Chiefs only scored 3 points in the second quarter. But then the Jets scored 8 points in the third quarter. Great drive by Zach Wilson. Looked really good. The Chiefs did not score in the third quarter. In the fourth quarter, the Chiefs scored 3 points, and that's how they won the game. Zach Wilson did in fact fumble, but he wasn't ready for the snap. It happens. But Zach Wilson looked good in this game. Now, the reason I bring up Alex Kemp's crew is in the fourth quarter. The game was tied 20-20. And Mahomes looked, it was a 3rd and 20 or 3rd and 22. And Mahomes drops back and he decides to run. And he picks up the first down. Looks good. Until you saw the replay. You looked at the replay, and I saw it during the play. But you look during the replay, you see 3 holds by the Chiefs' offensive line. 3. The left end was held, the right end was held, and Quinnen Williams was held. But they didn't call it. Did not call it. Gave the Chiefs the first down. Another 3rd down. Okay, another big 3rd down. Mahomes throws it, gets intercepted. Travis Kelce was not on the field for this play. He was tired. It was bad. Threw the ball. Mahomes throws the pass, gets intercepted. Flag. Initially, they said holding on number 11. Now, number 11, Johnson, he's a pass rusher. So I was like, wait, the pass rusher? And the only reason I knew it was a pass rusher was because he made a play early in the game. He tackled Pacheco or Edwards-Helaire. That's the only reason I knew that. Because I was like, so wait, the official from the left side, from his left, so it would be right on any other angle, from his side is going to throw a flag on somebody all the way across the field? How could he see that? He couldn't. So then they say, okay, well, no, it's on Sauce Gardner. Okay. Not that I'm happy with the penalty. I'm saying, okay, it's more feasible because the guy's right there. But you look at it, they're hand fighting. Does he grab him a little bit? Yeah, but they're hand fighting. They're hand fighting. You can't call that a holding call. It led to an interception. And when I saw the flag, I thought they threw the flag late. It's a penalty, but it's still an interception. And they said, no, it's a holding. We're giving the Chiefs the first down. What? And it's the only time I've seen Robert Saleh lose his cool. He lost his cool. He went berserk and was like, how can you call that? He was losing his mind. And at the end of the game, Mahomes scampers for a first down. That won them the game. And Saleh ran all the way down and was screaming at the official. He got an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. But instead of me going and saying, Saleh shouldn't have done that, I commended. I didn't condemn him. I commended him for doing that. Because I was like, thank you. Even though you lost the game, thank you. Thank you for screaming at this team, at this officiating crew. They are the Angel Hernandez of the NFL. I don't know if you can have 7 people be one person, but I'm like, they're the Angel Hernandez of the NFL. They are the worst officiating crew in the NFL. And it's not even close, in my opinion. They had a pass interference that they pulled back against the Cowboys the week before. There was a holding penalty here. There was a holding penalties here, and that they ignored. There was a holding call that they decided to call, which it was ticky-tack at best, and it lost the Jets the game. That's why I do that. That's why I do that. This crew is the worst in the NFL, in my opinion. Because they're so focused on that they need to be the front runner to the game, and that's not what you're supposed to do. You're the officials. You're the third person other than you're the third and sometimes the fourth person that has to be focused on. The teams, the fans, and then it's you. Not you're first and then those other things come after you. That's not how it's supposed to work. But the last thing I saw and I took from this game was, and I've taken this from the Chiefs the whole time. It feels like every time the Chiefs play, no matter how good the other team is, it's we have to talk about the Chiefs every single time. Every single time. He pulled a rabbit out of his hat. How did he do that? When it was the most easy. It's every team does that. Last week, I'll give you a good example from the Cowboys side. The Cowboys had a backup running back run a screen pattern, and they actually ran a successful screen. It shouldn't have been, though. There were 6 guys, and the running back was managed somehow to get away from that. Got away, almost picked up the first down, but he should have lost yardage. So it was an impressive thing. Mahomes, you could have put a whole truck through. He ran it. He pulled a rabbit out of his hat. How did he do that? What? How is that better than that? Than the first play that he should have lost yardage on? That's not better. There's no way that's better. It doesn't even compare. But that's the way the media is. Because they're so focused on the Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift news, they're not focused on the game. On the game, they are saying, we're so focused about Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift and what Mahomes does, we don't care that Zach Wilson actually looked like a capable quarterback. When that's what they should have taken from the game. They were saying, oh, the Chiefs team's really good. Mahomes pulled another rabbit out of his hat. How did he do that? I'm like, they were winning the whole game. They were never losing in the game. Where Zach Wilson, who we didn't know if he could play for dead, actually played well. He actually played well. They came back from a 17-0 deficit and tied the game 20-20. That defense looked great. He looked good. He looked really good. Not there yet, but if he can continue to build, he'll be there. It'll just take some time if he can continue to build on that performance. But they were so focused on what the Chiefs did, not focused on what Zach Wilson did. And that is annoying, and it's the one reason of why a lot of people don't like Mahomes. It's not Mahomes' fault from the way he plays. It's the fact that the media puts him on a pedestal that they shouldn't be putting him on. I understand we put Tom Brady on this pedestal, Terry Bradshaw, Joe Montana. They won Super Bowls. They won 4 Super Bowls at least. Mahomes, before he won a Super Bowl, they were already putting him on that pedestal. It made no sense. It makes no sense, and they did it again. When we're also saying, hey, it's the Jets. This should have been a 20-point blowout, and it wasn't, and the Jets quarterback actually looked good. We should have been talking about that, but no, we were talking about the Chiefs, who scored 23 points against a team that gave up 30 points and couldn't score more than 16 against the Cowboys, couldn't score 15 points against the Patriots, who only scored 15. Zach Wilson looked good. He wasn't the issue. The officials cost the Jets the game. I said it. I might get in trouble, but I don't care. You gotta take the lips off the Chiefs keister to understand that. Period. End of story. On Wednesday, we will do a show, and we have a little surprise on what happened on Tuesday with a very special guest, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. For NFL World, I'm Jacob Hebert. Out.